Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the English news from Djibouti channels. Here are the headlines of our edition tonight. The main headlines are today: the President of the Republic chaired the 22nd sessions of the Council of Ministers. On continental news, dialogue and differences for the first meeting between Putin and many other countries. Welcome if you join us as I mentioned in the headlines, under the leadership of His Excellency Mr. Ismail Omar Guelleh, President of the Republic, head of the government, held the 22nd sessions of the Council of Ministers on Tuesday, December. The following text, we review it and approve it.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Sous la présidence du chef de l'État, Son Excellence M. Ismail Omar Guelleh, s'est tenue la 22e séance du Conseil des ministres en ce mardi 10 décembre 2019.
Beginning of the season, the Minister of the Interior reported on the assessment of the actions taken by the government following the severe storms that caused major floods and extensive material damage. He informed about the work undertaken, in particular the pumping and cleaning operations and the assistance to the victims to ensure their primary needs. In addition, the Minister explained the actions planned to deal with the torrential terrains in order to rescue and assist the population. Finally, the President of the Republic instructed the government on the measures to be taken for a permanent and continuous response to the floods. He urged the government to take all appropriate measures to ensure the proper functioning of the equipment, the implementation of preventative actions to deal with any type of epidemic, and the rehabilitation of infrastructure toward the country. The head of the state asked for post-storm reflection on the preservation of public infrastructure such as roads, schools, health structures, and housing, as well as measures to improve the sanitation of flooded or floodable areas with the involvement of all stakeholders. Since its independence, our country has distinguished itself particularly in the resolution of conflicts and the promotion of peace in the Horn of the region and beyond. In particular, the AU mission in Somalia and other peace support missions on the African continent, the fight against terrorism and the protection of vulnerable persons by welcoming a significant number of refugees on its soil. Our country considers its candidacy to be legitimate and that of a united Africa. We must therefore defend and promote it until the vote before the United Nations General Assembly in June 2020. Finally, he informed about the meetings he had with the African group, the Arab group, and the OIC member states, and the support of the Islamic corporations, the International Organization of Francophone, and the League of Arab States. Ministry of Labor in charge of administrative reform. First question, draft law on the ratification of the 1986 instrument of amendment to the Constitution of the International Labor Organization. The purpose of the draft law to ratify the 1986 instrument of amendment to the Constitution of the International Labor Organization adopted at the General Labor Conference on 24 June 1986, and to improve the representative member of the government body by means of a method of appointment which takes into account the different geographical, economic, and social interests of the groups which constitute. It provides for a change in the number of seats allocated to the board of directors in the way they are allocated. This reform will modernize the governments of the international labor organizations and make it more just and inclusive. The adoption of this amendment instrument reflects our country's commitment to the ILO. Second question, draft decree approving the provisional budget for the 2020 financial year of the National Agency for Employment, Training, and Vocational Integration. Third question, draft decree approving the provisional budget for 2020 of the National Institute of Public Administration. The Ministry of Labor presented two draft orders. The provisional budget for the 2020 financial year of the National Agency for Employment, Training, and Vocational Integration is adopted as revenue at 658 million Djiboutian francs. On the basis of these projects and program, the agency plans to improve the quality of the reception of job seekers, the establishment of a platform to facilitate communications between employers and job seekers, and the improvement of employability and integration of young people. The provisional budget for the 2020 financial year of the National Institute of Public Administration is adopted as revenue and expenditure at 259 million Djiboutian francs. The 2020 estimated budget is based on the Institute's new transformation strategy to support administrative reform. The adoption of these draft budgets aim to improve young people's access to employment and to strengthen INAP with a view to implementing its transformation strategy based on a genuine school of excellence in quality quality household work. Fourth question, draft decree appointing to the State Secretariat for Youth and Sports. The following are appointed: Mrs. Khadija Ibrahim Idris, Secretary General; Mr. Mustafa Ismail Lawar, Director of General Administration, Legal Affairs in charge of regulations; Mrs. Fatuma Ali Dabale, Director of Gulad Stadium; Mr. Muhammad Ismail Galle, Project Director, Ministry under the Presidency in charge of investments. Fifth question, draft decree approving the provisional budget for the People's Palace for the year 2020. The provisional operating budget for the People's Palace for the year 2020 is set at 365 million Djibouti francs in income and expense. This 2020 budget pursues the objectives of improving revenues and rational maintenance of all technical infrastructures in order to perpetuate the investments made in recent years. Ministry of National Education and Vocational Training. Sixth question, draft order approving the provisional budget for the 2020 financial year of the Center of Research, Information and Production of National Education. The budget of the Center of Research, Information and Production of National Education for the year 2020 is set at 497 million Djiboutian francs, nearly 500 million Djiboutian francs. Siripen is planning to carry out an investment program to revise school textbooks, booklets, and didactic and pedagogical tools for basic education, diegetes textbooks, and continuing educational programs as part of the educational chain. The adoption of the draft order will enable the center to fully carry out its missions within the framework of the policy of improving the quality of education.
And now let's listen once again to the rest of the report of the Council, the second part.
Concerne un projet d'arrêté portant approbation le budget provisionnel de l'ONEAD.
Seventh question, draft decree approving and implementing the provisional budget for the year 2020 of the Center for the Training of Teachers of Basic Education. The budget of the Center for the Training of Teachers of Basic Education for the year 2020 is set at 206 million Djiboutian francs. The 2020 budget will allow the initial training of students, teachers in the single framework, the organizations and support of particular internships, the implementation of distance learning for the regions, the improvement of the language laboratories activities, and the introduction of information and communication technologies for educations in practice and teaching and learning. Ministry of Agriculture, Water, Fisheries, Livestock, and Fisheries Resources. Eighth question, draft order approving estimated budget for the ONAID for the year 2020. The provisional accounts of the Djibouti National Office for Water and Sanitation for the year 2020 are closed in review at 8.3 million Djiboutian francs, with an increase in drinking water production following the electrification of 2 pumping stations and the interconnection for air cargo fragmentation. 10th question, draft order adopting the provisional budget for 2020 of the Central Fragmentation. 10th question, draft order adopting the provisional budget for 2020 of the Center Building and Equipment Library. LCBE's provisional budget for the 2020 financial year is set as income at 352 million Djiboutian francs. In 2020, the library aims to improve communications, to increase its visibility among the general public, acquire equipment, improve the quality of services provided, and strengthen institutional capacities to ensure effective governance. Ministry of Social Affairs and Solidarity. 11th question, draft order approving and implementing the provisional budget for the year 2020 of the Djibouti Social Development Agency. The provisional operating budget for the 2020 financial year of the Djibouti Social Development Agency is adopted as income and expenses at 436 million Djiboutian francs. The agency is planning an investment component of 4.3 billion Djiboutian francs to continue the World Bank Regional Project, the program to support the construction of economic infrastructure in the regions. In addition, the ADS will participate in the implementation of the new project of social protection, the project to support entrepreneurship of women and young social nets, the waste management project, the promotion of youth employment and crafts. Ministry of Housing. 12th question, draft decree approving the provisional budget for 2020 of the Real Estate and Land Development Company. The provisional budget for the 2020 financial year of the Real Estate and Land Development Company is set as income at 3.9 billion Djiboutian francs. The budget is prepared as part of an increase in activities and provides for the implementation of various projects, including the development of servicing, the marketing of ready-mix concrete, and the acquisition of various equipment. The adoption of the 2020 budget will enable Real Estate and Land Development Company to sustain its activities and rationalize its expenses. The Minister of Muslim Affairs, Culture, and Waqf's Property made a mission report on his working visit to Saudi Arabia from 3 to 5 December 2019. The Minister of Labor in charge of administrative reform reported on his participation in the 14th African Regional Meeting held from 03 to 06 December 2019 in Abidjan.
In regional news, the Prime Minister of Ethiopia, Dr. Abiy Ahmed, received the Nobel Prize and held the role played by the former for Eritrea in resolving the long-running conflict between the two countries. After the meeting of the council, the president of the republic gave instruction to the member of the government to go to the field in order to assess the situation after the last run for these 24 hours. Immediately, the members of the government, headed by the Minister of Justice, who is acting as a Prime Minister, the Minister of the Interior, Ahmed Sheikh, the Minister of Communication, Labor, Urban Planning, as well as the Minister of Budget and Trade, visited the various sectors of the capital in order to assess and report on the situations of the storm that have hit the country during the past 24 hours. The member of the government went more precisely to the Djibouti Institute of Arts, the School of the Plain, Gabot Far, Gilibatal, where they noticed stagnant waters. They quickly deployed the teams in charge of cleaning the stagnant water. The Minister of National Education and Vocational Training, Mr. Mustafa Mohammed Mahmoud, today led the first meeting of the organizing committee of the Third World Summit on Balanced and Inclusive Education, scheduled for 27th and 28th and 29th in Djibouti at Mainfob. All the members of the seat commissions, including the Director of State Protocol, senior national police officials, a representative of the ministers, and as well as the Minister of the Health and Labor, Communication and Decentralizations, all took part in the meeting, which provided an opportunity for the minister to launch the preparations for the forum. These presentations paved the way for a wide-ranging exchange that addressed all the organizational aspects for the summit meeting. Particular emphasis was placed on the synergy between the various committees, which will have to work closely together to prevent any risk during the summit. The minister and the member of the organizing committee studied issues relating to reservations in the main hotels of the place, the receptions, transport, security of participants, but also electronic visa facilities. In an open address, the minister stressed the importance of the major educational event that will have the honor and privilege for organizing jointly with our partners, Education's Relay Foundations. The Minister of Equipment and Transport, Mr. Musa Mohammed Ahmed, received yesterday a strong delegation from Japan, led by Ambassador Nippon in Djibouti, Mr. Koji Yonitani, accompanied by the senior executive of the multinational firm Toyota, Also present were the ambassadors of the Republic of Djibouti accredited to Japan, Mr. Ahmed Al-Reita Ali, and the Director General of Djibouti International Port and the International Airport, Mr. Mohammed Yusuf Sharmarke. Discussions focus on ways and means for development airport infrastructure and even investment opportunity in the field of transport and energy. The Minister of Social Affairs and Solidarity, Mrs. Muna Usman Adin, received yesterday from the Charge d'Affaires of the Saudi Embassy in Djibouti more than 7th meat courses from the ritual sacrifice made by the faithful during the last pilgrimage. The meat in questions already cut, frozen, and well packed in airtight boxes was transported from the Holy Mosque. The Minister of Social Affairs and Solidarity, Mrs. Muna Usman, thanked the government of who donate the needy family in Djibouti. The President of the Poor and Free Zone Authority, Mr. Abu Bakr Omar Hadi, received a strong delegation led by Mr. Gilbert, Minister of Special Economic Zone of the Republic of Congo. The objectives of the visit is a study visit of the Republic of Djibouti's experience in the fields of the free trade areas, since Congo has adopted within the framework of its diverse economy to build a special economic zone. This is a new experience for Congo, and they are here to learn from Djibouti's success in this area. The delegation was composed of the ambassador of Congo in Addis Ababa and the Congolese businessmen. Meet in the meeting room first with the president of the Djibouti Poor and Free Zone Authority, Mr. Abu Bakr Omar Hadi. The president of the Djibouti Poor and Free Zone Authority, Mr. Abu Bakr Omar Hadi, said that Djibouti Poor and Free Zone Authority would achieve a crucial role in the advance of economic integration in the region and the continent. In the context of the fight against smuggling, the Chief of General Staff of the Forces Army, Lieutenant General Zakaria Sheikh Ibrahim, accompanied by Colonel Zakaria Hassan Adan, Chief of the General Staff of the National Gendarmerie, as well as Colonel Abdullahi Abdi Farah, Director of the National Police in Dikhil, as well as Ali Sabih by the air on Saturday. Before its takeoff from Djibouti, the General of the Army Forces held a meeting with these two key officials to define the agenda and orientation of the important mission. The objective of this trip was to give formal instructions to all civilian and military officials in these two regions to convey to fight against smuggling and others scourges. Upon arrival in Dikhil, the General of the Forces Army and his delegation were welcomed by the prefect, as well as the president of the Dikhil Region Council, the chief of the Dikhil Joint Regiment, the commander of the Dikhil National Police Detachment in Asaila, the chief of the Dikhil Gendarmerie Brigade, as well as the population director and the contribution officials. Then together the military delegation and the civilian authorities moved into the meeting room of the Dikhil military camp. The general of the army opened the session stating that smuggling is one of the major concerns of the country's high authorities. It must also be our major concern and the priority missions of men in uniform. All institutions combined have to fight against this scourge. The various actors in the region must exercise discipline in all actions, he concluded his speech. Arriving in Ali Sabih, the delegation was also welcomed by the civil and military officials, including the prefect, the president of the regional council, and the chief of corps of of the Ali Sabih joined battalion. Immediately, the entire delegation moved to the meeting room where it was joined by all military officials, non-commissioned official heads of borders posted, all customs services in Ali Sabih region, the head of the gendarmerie and police brigade. As in Dakhil, the general of the army gave the same instruction, namely the work of men in uniform with the commander of Ali Sabih's place of arms. The BS chief of staff, the leader, must work closely with the prefect. It should be noted that the smuggling to Ali Sabih does not only concern Qat, there are also other categories of products that must be fight against by all means. Therefore, the general of the army urged all uniformed personnel in Dakhil and Ali Sabih in charge of the anti-smuggling mission to make an extreme sacrifice to fight and combat this phenomenon by strictly applying the law and military regulation in force. Finally, the two senior officials of the gendarmerie and the national took turns speaking in support of the general of the army's instructions. On this statement, the General Zakaria Sheikh Ibrahim, accompanied by Colonel Zakaria Hassan Adan, as well as Colonel Abdullahi Abdi Farah, returned to the capital at the end of the day. A delegation from the Ministry of Women and Family, led by the minister's legal advisors, Mrs. Usman Jama, Mr. Usman Jama Usman, accompanied by the head of Department of Regional and International Organizations and a high representative of the National Human Rights Commission, visited the Unity City on Monday. The objective of this trip is to present to the Dakhilians all the legal texts protecting women and children that our country has adopted in recent years. Obituary: we regret to inform you that the death of December 8 of the late Hawa Ahmed Addawi, born in 1940. The deceased is the mother of Amina Ahmed Warsame, technical advisor to the Minister of Social Affairs and Solidarity. The late Hawa Ahmed Addawi lived in Ward 6 and it was very well known and respected. She leaves behind her 8 children and several grandchildren. Upon learning of this painful death, the general management and all the staff of the RTD addressed their most sincere condolences to the family and loved ones of the deceased. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. And now let's move on continental news, dialogue and differences from the first meeting between Putin and Zelensky. More details, let's follow the report of Dini Musa.
And this is good point for Emmanuel Macron, host of the first meeting between the new Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin. Both arrived with objective at this four-party summit after 3 years of paralysis. They engaged in dialogue and results, and they made commitments on several points, such as the ceasefire and the exchange of prisoners. Putin welcomed an important step towards de-escalation. A further withdrawal of troops is also expected to take place in 3 Ukrainian areas by the end of March, and another four-party meeting is planned in 4 months to try to go further. The Ukrainian president was under pressure from the streets in Kyiv. Several demonstrations have taken place in recent weeks. These Ukrainians fear that Zelensky, a novice in politics, will make too many concessions to Vladimir Putin. Meeting in front of the presidency, they expressed their satisfaction with the summit and the words of their head of state.
Here we arrive at the end of this news edition. Thank you for watching us. Goodbye.